Welcome to Become the Leader, the show that equips you to rise higher, lead stronger, and become the leader you would follow. Hey guys, Jody Holland here with the Become the Leader podcast. Excited to be back for the second session talking about the global workforce and the changes that are happening. In this session, we're going to be talking about how this is more of a leadership test than a technology test as the workforce shifts. And we're going to talk about how being a great manager and great leader is a mandate. And we'll kind of tie all of that in with technology and what it's doing, hitting younger workforce actually harder than it's hitting the older workforce. So I'm Jody Holland.
Malia Grigsby. I'm Megan Slaughter.
Mike Grigsby.
And here we go. So Mike, you had a technology point you were going to make as we were wrapping up the last session. So let me let you lead this off.
We were talking about kind of outcomes based. That was one of the things that was kind of a recurring theme or recurring topic. This outcomes based either performance or how we're beginning to look at this thing called work or this thing called jobs, right? It's interesting. So my background has been in technology for the last however many years. I'll refrain from saying how many years, but it's been a lot.
We'll go at least 30.
At least 30. So what's really interesting is we've kind of built our mindset and dare I even say our appetite around technology for storing data and retrieving data. We would get this data, we'd put it into a place where we could then catalog it, inventory it, and then retrieve it when we needed it. What's interesting as technology has progressed over time, you have this now event-based architecture or event-defined architecture where your system has had so much data. I'm paraphrasing a lot here, but your system has had so much data that it's knowledgeable about how you have done things over a protracted period of time. And now through agentic AI, you are able to allow the machine to go, we've seen this movie before. If X happens, we should do Y, which will produce Z as a result. And this events-based technology architecture that is really starting to drive helps make decisions a lot faster, but also helps anticipate what is further out on the horizon. I think that there is a mirroring between what we're seeing on the technology side and the work side, where workers are no longer just kind of fixated on completing tasks, right? They're
Yeah.
now needing to think about what their task is going to produce and a so what, I put that in air quotes, right?
Yeah.
So what? If you've done this task, if this task equals this, the outcome, now we're starting to think in terms of impact. Because of this outcome, we're now able to do this, or this thing has now occurred, or this thing. And I I believe that we are going to be stretched, especially those who have a lot of memory of how work used to be.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be stretched to reorient ourselves around what work is going to be and look at it that way. I think, Megan, you had mentioned in the previous session that your generation and certainly those coming up behind you are thinking first through this lens of psychological safety. I, I'm not going to just give you trust because you're paying me dollars, right? I'm going to give you trust because you're reciprocating that trust back to me. You're treating me as a human being, et cetera, right? I think that flies in the face of the generation that Jody and I came from, and certainly those before, because we were always told, hey, if we wanted your opinion, we would have given it to you a long time ago, or we would have asked for it, right?
And
Whatever the
I'm going to
case
throw
is,
something in there.
you know?
Sorry to
Yeah,
interrupt. I'm going to throw this
no,
in there
do
that
it.
my thought has always been around the generations. It seems like that's what we wanted is what the next
100%.
generation
I
is
was just going to make that
demanding.
point. Yes, I was just going to make that
So
point.
we're not arguing that it's a good idea because I think
No,
that's what we had always wanted for ourselves. We just never got
yeah.
it.
I think our posture is more like, are you allowed to say that? Are you
Yeah.
are you allowed to say that I should be psychologically safe first? Like nobody, I grew up in the military. I grew up with a military father. I grew up like, kids were meant to be seen, not heard. Workers were supposed to just show up and get it done. If you cut your arm off on the assembly line, rub some dirt in it and finish out your shift. That was kind of this mentality. But now we've got psychological safety first, and that's okay. but it's
Mhm.
just irregular. It's not what we're used to, and it's creating a lot of disruption.
I think a lot of that comes from the fact that most parents want their kids to have a different life and for it to be better for them. So they instill these different values that maybe they didn't experience growing up. So as the generations progress, you start seeing these shifts, and the older generations think, that's not the way that I do it. But yet they're the ones who taught their kids, well, I wasn't able to do this, and I think
Right.
you should be able to do it. And then they pass that down to their kids and it just continues. I mean, I think every generation before us has complained about these youngins these days and back in my day we did it this way and this is the way it should be, but it's never going to be the same again because the times are different. Technology is different. The workplace is different. I mean, you can't expect everything to stay the same, and if it does, then you're going to be the one who's left behind while everyone else around you is progressing forward.
And I think that that point of, as a leader, think about how are we deploying these changes? Because if you just go in and go, it's going to change. And that's what Mike's point was. A lot of times we were given our opinion. This
Yes.
is what you're going to do and you're going to like it. And we're not going to like it. We'll probably do it, but we're not going to like it. And getting to this place where we actually care for the people that work with us, making this more of a human transition and change management rather than just a mandate. This deployment of technology is important because, like, if you look at the World Economic Forum and part of the report, they said that where we're going to be impacted is the fastest growing and the fastest declining roles are all being shifted by the technology the most. And that's anything that is repetitive or can be automated. Like one of my clients does bottled water, and they can do like 200,000 bottles a day, and they have 9 employees. One is a forklift driver. Pretty much everybody else watches the automation. That one dude is like working his tail off, picking up the bottles, moving them over, picking up the bottles, moving them over, and everybody else is like, that's still blinking the way it's supposed to. I think I'm good. Yeah. What's interesting though is they also said that 2/3 of employers plan to hire based on AI specific skills. So that means 67% of employers across the world plan to hire based on AI specific skills, and 40% of all employers think that there will be a reduction in workforce while adding jobs. Like
I
that's
think
really mind blowing to me.
I think that's really interesting, and it should be. I think that statement there, Jody, should be a little scary for some people. It, when you and I were growing up in school, there was the great calculator debate. Shouldn't we use calculators for math? If we did that, if we didn't learn long division, then we were going to be soft, and we wouldn't know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide if we ever lost our technology, right? The the goal wasn't using the calculator. The goal was using the tool to be more efficient for what we were trying to accomplish. Right. And I think the same debate is happening now with AI. It's not just about AI so that you can find out, what the last, Star Wars movies had in common and what the connecting threads were, right? It's about trying to accomplish something for the betterment of society, for the betterment of yourself, for the betterment of your organization, et cetera, et cetera, right? I'm going back to what I was saying before. It's not just about the answers anymore. It's about formulating deeper, more thought-provoking questions
Which is
that
critical
gets you
thinking.
to a place, right? It's critical thinking. I think we will also, I'm really hoping that the way AI is out there now and it's being used, I really hope that this will start to constrain people, maybe even, dare I say, force people to start measuring people's intellect on a different scale, just not
Yeah.
on their regurgitation of rote answers or memorized answers, but on their ability to probe and discover and explore, because every one of us has that, right? The intellect is so high, but if we just kind of, look at this measuring stick called IQ or test scores or whatever else, we're missing so much of the creativity and the capacity of of our society.
So I would imagine, I'm just curious for Megan and Belia, when you think about the work that you imagined you were going to do, let's say if you can remember back to say 14 or 15 years old, you're starting high school. You started about 14. You're starting high school at 14 years old. You're starting to think, man, someday I'm going to grow up. I'm going to move out of my dang parents' house and get a job and do whatever I want to do. What did you imagine work would be like? And then what's your experience? Malia, you're up. Oh, sorry. You can
Go
go
for it,
first,
Megan.
Megan.
I always thought that I would be working on my own. So it's been really interesting working with other people and really discovering how much I enjoy it. So I thought that I was going to be a photojournalist or a photographer. At one point, I thought I was going to be a chef. Um, it has shifted over the years, but I always thought in some capacity I would have my own business. And I have really discovered, as I've aged and been introduced into different types of jobs, that I really enjoy interacting with other people and learning from them. I like to hear their stories. I like to know what motivates them, and I tune that into my own work. I blog every single week, and I draw a lot of inspiration from other people and from those questions that I don't necessarily have the answer to, but that I am seeking out, kind of like what Mike was talking about. When somebody brings something to me, I think, I don't know, but I would love to learn. And so I don't just leave it at that. I go out and I pursue that knowledge and then I try to apply it to my own life. Now, I don't always take those lessons to heart. I wish that I could say that I did, but that's a
Understood.
lot easier said than done. So I always try to put it into what I'm doing if I'm able to.
Yeah. How about you, Malia?
Well, I wanted to be a teacher and I'm nowhere, well, I was going to say I'm nowhere close to it, but this is the whole point that I was trying to make of your work versus your job. I wanted to be a teacher because I love instructing. There's no greater feeling than watching other people get an aha moment because of something that you said. And that I get to do that in my work now. And that's something that I know is part of whatever step I make, whatever career choice I make, I know that has to be something that will be implemented in my position. And I think about like Megan, you just said that what you do or what you wanted to do in high school has actually translated into what you do now, and what you thought you wanted completely shifted, but at the same time, it's been this same connecting thread. Dad, I think about you. You wanted to be a police officer when you were young. You did end up executing it, but even now, it's because you felt that there was this civic duty that you wanted to leave the world better than you found it, that you wanted to help other people define and recognize their own values. And you do that even now in every position that you've ever had, from janitor to police officer to consultant. You've been able to do those same things. And I think that's an important thing. And I really, as we talk about how his managerial position shifted, I think that's how it has to shift, is understanding that every person brings something so different and they have their own views on what they're wanting from this position that they're stepping into that you're managing. Um, and understanding how asking them the questions of like that, what did you want to do in high school, what did you want to do in college, and understanding and helping them recognize what that connecting thread is, not only to help them in the position that they're in now, but to set them up for future as well. And when you do that and show that level of care, they're going to trust you and their guard is going to be dropped and they're going to be a better employee, they're going to produce better, and they'll stay around longer.
Yeah. The reason I like getting these different perspectives, especially like the four of us, but also thinking World Economic Forum versus the Gallup organization, is economic theory is that we will always do what is in our best interest economically, financially. The reality is that's not how people work. Economic psychology describes that we will always do what is in our best identity. And this is the shift part that I think is going to be so interesting in the workplace, and why I think this is not a crisis about job transition or changes in workplace structure. This is a crisis about, are our leaders going to be ready to build the kind of cultures that retain good people so
Right.
that they can still stay in business and do a good job? Because
Right.
that's the differentiator, is your people will make or break you every single time. Because even if you have great data, to Mike, to your point, you now have people that were the data analysts that are going, okay, now I can tell the story that the data is describing instead of just using lagging indicators. Now I can be predictive and prescriptive and use that data for something that's even better. And then they can use their time to think. And the part that we miss so often in business, especially when you get into a leadership position, you need time to think. And it's hard to justify that, like put that on a job description, spends 1 hour daily thinking. Like you're not going to get a lot of HR directors going, that makes sense. Let's think. But you look at the greats throughout history, the ones that were the innovators, the ones that shifted the world, they all take time to think. And so tying all of this together, I I believe what we're going to see is that your love for teaching and creating aha moments is accomplished through your work in the community as well as through podcasting and the people that are listening to this and getting those moments. Mike, you've always had, like Malia said, that passion for protecting communities as well. You just do it through technology. I have always believed that people deserve a great place to work, and I've always believed that they deserve great leaders to work for.
Yes.
And when you have the leaders and the cultures working together, everything is phenomenal. Megan, getting to watch you grow up and see you go through your chef phase and your photographer phase, the one thing that was constant in everything that you did is you loved creativity. And so your work is creativity. Malia's work is education. Mike's work is problem resolution and idea generation. So we put our work in there and you get a job where you get to do that work. And if the
Right.
job does not fit your identity, you do not stay. That's
Mhm.
that's what I'm seeing going forward. So I think we're going to have to learn people at a deeper level. One of the reasons I'm a big fan of assessment technologies, if we can learn them and learn what drives them and motivates them, man, we can build a supercharged workforce that was for people and the right technology. You can do what 20 people used to do. That's where I see us going in our workforce. So I do think, even though WEF is like, we will reduce the number of employees, but we will add more jobs. Like it doesn't make sense logically, but if you look at it from an integration of technology and humanity, the new leadership mandate is, can I get people so engaged and so happy with what they're doing that they find a way to get to the outcome because it inspires them, not because they're made to.
Yeah. My wife makes the comment that, with technology and all the advancements, that we're going to end up like the movie Wall-E, right? Where we're just human beings on these skiffs, these, automated
Floating
skiffs that
around.
are moving around, floating, just sucking Slurpees and things like that. I get why we would
Some
think
will.
that. And some will, right? Some will look for that opportunity, but I think humans throughout history have proven their ingenuity and their penchant for work, not jobs, but their penchant for work to
Mhm.
to be engaged in their surroundings, to be engaged with their neighbors, to be engaged with all of these other things, their surroundings. And I think what's interesting is if technology is advancing to the point where we don't have to work anymore, then what does the human do?
But we
Right?
already did that twice,
we, we,
at
we've
least,
done
and we're
we've done
still
it too many
working.
times, right? But I think it's a great, not just an existential question, but I think it's a really valid question to understand, like what we're trying to accomplish while we're here. And I don't mean the meaning of life. I'm not trying to take us down that path, right?
I like
But
that path.
as a human, if all of the tasks are automated that you would normally do, what do you do? And I think that's a valid question to start wrestling with now. I mean, now is as good as any time.
And I mean, I do think man will always search for meaning. Viktor Frankl, coming out of World
Hmm.
War II, talked about,
Yeah.
man's search for meaning, talked about living even when dying made more sense because he survived
The
going through
Holocaust.
four
Yeah.
different concentration camps. But I think what man is always looking for is, why am I here? And I think technology is not going to answer that question for them. Because if
Yeah.
you go ask ChatGPT, why am I here? Like, because you logged on. Like, the capacity for creative clashing is part of what humanity has that technology does not. Now, the synthesis of data and information, when you combine what tech can do with what people can be absolutely amazing. I believe, just like Frankel said, we find meaning in the work that we do. We find meaning in the relationships that we have, both at work and outside of work. And we find meaning in the struggle. The reason we will never stop working is we were designed to struggle. And if there is no struggle, we will create it. Even the great philosophical movie The Matrix from 1999, when he, gets to the end of it and he goes, we created the perfect utopia, but your minds rejected it. You couldn't survive as humans without problems. Well,
Yeah.
that is our wiring. We need problems to solve. So if we solve all of the existential problems that we can think of right now, we'll think of new ones. Now, imagine, and I'm going to kind of pull it back with this, the problems that you're facing today, you dreamed about the time that you could face them. And as you get better and better and you upskill yourself, you will face much bigger problems. And right now, you're dreaming about the opportunity to face them.
Right.
That's where we're at. So I do think that we're going to keep growing, but I do think really what we're fighting for is a better leadership culture and better leadership skills for the deployment of advancing technology without the loss of humanity.
Jody, what do you think is I don't want to say missing because I think it's there, but what do you think is from a leadership standpoint, looking between now, 2026 and 2030, what do you think is the most crucial leadership trait or skill that needs to be developed that is quote unquote missing in our current leadership core?
The commitment to continuous learning.
Hmm.
This has been the problem over and over again for the last 30 years of doing what I do, that there are so many people like, oh, I went to a leadership course. I'm now a leader. There isn't a there isn't a point when you have reached your maximum capacity as a human. And if you ever give up on that, then you go backwards. And this is my big frustration with some of the clients that I will go fix their problems, get their leadership on board, and they'll go, yeah, we don't need you. And I am not ungrateful for the opportunity. I want to be very clear. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. But just think about when you have facilitated meetings with leadership teams, Mike,
Yep.
and you don't have an agenda other than checking in on the flywheel, rating where we're at, and talking about what needs to happen. That outside leadership voice has exponentially positive impact on engagement, productivity, uh, overall on profitability. So you think about the four bottom lines that I talk about in some of my other stuff. Profitability is the result of the first three.
Right.
Are you the employer of choice? Are you the provider of choice? And are you the right corporate citizen? And if you hit those three, you're always going to make a lot of money. But if you're only chasing the money, you're probably going to screw up the other three. And then eventually you won't make any money. So I think the greatest skill set anybody could have is the desire to continuously learn. That's the thing
Malia,
that is missing.
Malia Megan, what do you think of when you hear that as a needed element, needed component within the leadership core? One, that you're following right now, and two, that you're going to become that leadership core in not too many years.
I think learning is the root of everything that we do. And so, kind of
I
going
like
off of
that.
that, when I heard Jody talking on it, I was thinking knowing when to pivot and when to persist is another critical skill that we can develop. And
Yes.
that comes from learning from our mistakes, learning when we can't push forward anymore and we need to change our pathway. And a lot of the time, we're going to be reluctant to change. But if we're truly learning from what's in front of us, then we'll understand we can still get to where we want to be. We just may need to take a new approach to it. And that's okay too. So learn from your mistakes, learn from your successes and just try to learn something new every single day because you're not going to regret learning something, but you will regret being left behind.
Oh yeah. Malia, your thoughts?
I just, well, first off, as far as being a lifelong learner, that's just like it's second-hand nature to me. That's like, I don't know, I've been hearing that since I was like 3 years old. Like doesn't everyone do
Who
that?
told you that?
Since you can remember hearing.
Right, exactly. And I think it's so incredibly important. But I would even argue more important than that, if we're growing into this leadership core or leader core, it's the sense of humility that we really need to grow in that I see lacking in leaders around me right now.
Mm.
That as soon as you step into this manager role or leader role, that you lose the sense of humility, that, oh, my way or the highway, or my word is the final word. When it's the best leaders are the ones that are willing to step aside, listen to everything, contemplate with one another, and almost letting the people that you're managing, almost letting them come up with the answer, you just kind of dragging it out of them. And it's knowing how to poke and prod at the right pieces
Yeah.
because you understand that they have the answers within them, and that's how they grow too. So I think there's a sense of humility that it's not the person that's in the leadership role that gets all the credit. It's the team, it's the people that they are leading that truly are the heartbeat behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Again,
everything that you said on that, Malia, made me think of a lot of the time we think we can only learn from people that are above us, that have more success in their careers, but leaders can learn from their employees. And you have to be open to that. And that's part of the humility aspect of it is be willing to hear from them and take their advice because you're not going to have the answer for everything. And if you can learn from them, they're going to be more receptive of learning from you as well.
Totally.
all right, Mike, give us a final thought and then I'm going to wrap this one up.
Yeah, I like what you just said, Megan. Leadership is not about being in charge, right? Leadership is taking ownership of the highest responsibility for that organization, that group, that team, or whatever. You are the first servant within that. And, the idea that if a leader feels that they can't learn from the people in their charge, that is a
You're not a
leader that
leader.
is destined for failure. I mean, you have to be not only a lifelong learner, but you have to understand that you are taking input from everything around you, everyone around you, every situation. This is, being able to connect disparate dots, seemingly disparate dots. I think that's a true mark of a leader, mark of a true leader.
I would agree. So I'm going to wrap this up with this thought. The future of jobs is not being decided by artificial intelligence, economics, or even technology. I think the future of jobs is being decided by whether or not the leaders are willing to evolve and grow faster than the world around them. The leaders that can lead people through change are the ones that can handle any change. So I'm Jody Holland.
Malia Grigsby.
I'm Megan Slaughter.
Mike Grigsby.
This is the Become the Leader podcast. We will see you on the next episode. Don't forget to subscribe to this. Also, please share this with your friends. And if you have any ideas for shows, we'd love to hear from you. We'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for joining Become the Leader. Keep growing forward and become the leader you would follow.